you fed up with money? All those dirty bills and pesky coins falling everywhere all the time? Cash is dumb. Credit cards, too confusing. And writing a check? Who's got a pen? Here at the Splunk T-shirt company, we've invented a better way to buy stuff. Introducing Shirtcoin, the very latest in decentralized peer-to-peer currency. Buying a hot dog? Pay with a shirt. Mortgage due? Pay with a pile of shirts. It's flexible, it's fungible, it's the future. Join almost hundreds of early adopters and buy Shirtcoin today. Sign up now and get a handy Shirtcoin back wallet while supplies last.
Shirtcoin has not been approved by the SEC, the banking industry, or the U.S. federal government and may be illegal in some countries. Use at your own risk.
My name is Cory Minton. I am a strategist here at Splunk. You guys hear me okay? Cool. Well, welcome to the Splunk booth here at AWS reInvent 2021. We are actually in person. For those of you joining online, for those of you walking by, grab a seat. We're getting ready to talk about racing as a service and how Splunk has partnered with McLaren and their Shadow Esports team to really bring data to racing like never before. My name's Cory Minton. I'm a staff strategist here at Splunk, which means you can't see it, but in the picture you can clearly see my beard is gray. That means I've been around a while, so I've learned a few things. I'm an old techie and I have some fun, but in this role, I have probably the coolest job at Splunk. We get to do really fun, creative projects with our best partners to highlight the power of Splunk's observability and IT tools in really fun and creative ways. So one of the things that I did before I got here and that I continue to be proud of is I've been a blogger and a podcaster for a number of years and then built a team called Big Data Beard, where I invited a bunch of other techies to come with me. And we were folks that were like building and breaking stuff in the big data ecosystem before big data was in the vernacular. And we were posting things to kind of help people understand what worked, what didn't. And then we started the podcast and we've had over 350,000 downloads in the last few years. So a pretty popular podcast. And we continue to be super happy to be partnering with Splunk on a bunch of projects. Now, Splunk, if you're in, is anybody here into F1, like F1 racing? Yeah, a little bit. Okay. So if you've seen McLaren's beautiful F1 cars this year and the last year, you've seen Splunk on the side of it. So we're a partner, we're a sponsor, and we're actually partnering with McLaren in a number of ways, not only to bring data to their racing environments, but also if you have to imagine like an F1 team sends lots of technology out to, racetracks, that's servers, network, and storage in order to actually support the race team efforts. So they're using Splunk to monitor and make sure that those systems are up and running for race support. But we also found out that McLaren has a sponsorship of a team called McLaren Shadow. And if you're not familiar, esports and sim racing has exploded in popularity. And one good thing to come out of the pandemic was people realized that you can actually get into racing at home for pretty cheap. All you need is a simple, sort of PC and a steering wheel, and you can go racing. And the platforms are incredibly authentic and accurate representations of racing. And so they actually have a team that competes in both the Formula One esports series. They compete in Coca-Cola NASCAR and a variety of racing series around the world. And so Splunk actually partnered with their team to start to think about how do we bring data to esports, because esports sim racing isn't a place where there's really any data analytical tools to analyze what are the drivers doing, how are they performing. And so we have had an opportunity to partner with them on that. So just so you know, the platform that we're most focused on from a racing perspective is called Iracing. And if anybody's familiar with Iracing, it's kind of the leader right now and probably the most advanced in terms of the simulation authenticity. And again, all you need to get going is an iracing.com account, a PC that's got a GPU in it, because again, it's a modern video game. You need the processing, but you can actually run it on a pretty low-end GPU, honestly. You need a wheel and pedals because it is a simulator. And I'll tell you, if you try to play it with an Xbox controller, it is really, really terrible. You will not have fun, I promise. You can use monitors, 1 monitor, 2 monitor, 3 monitor. I race in VR, and it's insanely like immersive feeling. I will warn you, if you race in VR, close your eyes if you wreck, because it will make you sick really fast. And having a sim seat somewhere natural to kind of bolt everything to is pretty fun. Now, our goals, and one of the project that we're talking about here today is this thing called data drivers. And so because of our partnerships and we're trying to figure out ways to bring data to racing, we're like, let's not do that in a vacuum. Let's do it publicly. And so what we decided to do was, let's use the esports sim racing data as a proxy for IT data, because there's some similar sort of things that are going on there. But let's actually bring folks along with us to use Splunk's observability and IT tools to start to drive insights for esports but you're doing the same things in Splunk that you'd actually be doing if you were trying to deploy Splunk for observability and for IT. And we like to have fun. So that's kind of the big goals. So Iracing as a platform, one of the great benefits of it is a data gold mine. They have a Iracing API, and there's a couple of different SDKs out there that actually expose more than 400 data points in real time for every racer. And you get data points from everything like, car performance. But I'm talking about like crazy detailed car performance data. Like every tire, we get 3 measurements of temperature across each, the sides and the center. So one thing, side note, we learned this. I don't know if you know, but if you find out that your temperatures are hotter in the center than they are on the outside, you have a tire inflation problem. And that makes sense logically, but we never knew that. So it's fun insights we found. There's also a ton of data about what's going on in the track and in the environment. So like the wind and the weather and the temperature of the track, the marbles on the track. But you also get information about the computer. So like GPU utilization, infrastructure kind of information that tells you how are things going. One interesting important one is frame rate. So how many frames per second is the game refreshing at? Because if that gets low, it's hard to see. Like you can't really react at speed. Okay, so it's a data gold mine. That's super fun. So we took customers on a journey, or I shouldn't say customers, we took people on a journey because a lot of folks had never seen Splunk before, and they were joining us on Twitch for the first time. And we thought it would be a cool idea to basically say, okay, why don't over a 6-month period, we walk these folks through the skills it takes to deploy Splunk the way that we walk customers through, deploying Splunk for IT use cases. So we started with, you need to basically get the infrastructure and the application data. So we started with our infrastructure monitoring and troubleshooting sort of work process. So we started bringing in data from the local, PC that they're playing on the game. And then in the next one, we actually wrote this custom application to pull data from that iRacing API and send it to an AWS load balancer so we could handle the key management for racers around the world. And then that data lands in Splunk in our observability cloud so we can start to drive some insights. Then once we got it into Splunk, we started building KPIs. So like, what are the metrics that actually matter to the end users? And we partnered with McLaren's Shadow Esports team, their manager. So the manager of the team of many drivers who needs to make decisions about who's getting to go on track, but also with the racers themselves to find out what data did they want in real time to see and visualize that would actually give them the things that are interesting back. Then we started thinking about how do you put those KPIs together into services that really tell us if good things are happening. And we'll talk about that in detail in a second. Then we built some really cool visualizations we're going to show you in a second. And then we started thinking about how do we drive action? So how do we take like intelligent alerts and actually tell the driver things like on their watch that something bad is happening that doesn't require a visual cue, right? So lots of fun. And the way we did this again is we built a custom application. You can, we'll send the link out later, or we'll put it up here, but you can literally go to GitHub and just type in data drivers, and this is what comes up. So we built a custom application. You can download and run it. You'll just need to get keys from us for sending the data, which is easy, and we can make that accessible. So we use Splunk Observability Cloud to make it really easy to get the data in and start to expose some cool visualizations. And for those of you in person, if you haven't seen Observability Cloud, we've got a really cool demo over here. You can come check it out. Now, we used Observability Cloud, but we also wanted to use Splunk IT Service Intelligence. So with this simple Splunk infrastructure monitoring add-on, it makes it easy to consume the data no matter where you are, both cloud or on-prem. So Splunk IT Service Intelligence is really the tool that we use for modern IT operations and companies seeking to deploy AI ops, right? So it's the tool that gives you the ability to have data from anywhere, 360-degree view across infrastructure, apps, and business services that are critical. And then we actually apply machine learning to do things like build adaptive thresholds to reduce event noise. We do things like predicting outages. So we can actually predict up to 30 minutes ahead of time if an outage is going to occur in a particular service. And really the whole idea is IT Service Intelligence focuses your operations team on the stuff that matters to human action. And we also support them with next best action recommendations based on machine learning. Okay, so we used Splunk IT Service Intelligence. As I said, you kind of need to understand some basics with terminology. So a metric is just, we know there's logs, which is a piece of data that has a timestamp and some text, but metrics are more of a current metric value. It's a value of something going on. So like current fuel pressure is this many PSI, or current tire temperature is this temperature, right? So metrics, if you think about them as like, I apply a threshold to them, they're key performance indicators. Like if tire temperature goes over a certain value, that tells me I have a problem, right? So that's what KPIs are. Entities are the things that are giving me KPIs. So like an entity might be the gaming PC or the application. Then the business processes are like, what is the outcome I'm trying to drive? And so we build services to support business operations. So think of like A service is like, you can have technical services like data center, right? You can have business services like order to cash or procure to pay. And those are all interconnected, and you need to think about the dependencies. So let's bring that to life. So this is Splunk IT Service Intelligence. This is an analyzer, a service analyzer in what we call tree view. And so working with McLaren, we basically figured out that, we asked Tobin Lee, what's the most important thing for you? And he's like, to win, duh. I'm like, well, okay, that makes sense. But how do you start to predict, or how do you know, not just based on the position of the car, but how do you like really know if they're going to win, or you think that they're doing well? And so he started talking about things like lap time deltas. So if you're not familiar with a lap time delta, it's basically the idea of like, here's my best lap, here's the difference between my current lap and that lap. And if that's trending the wrong way, that can tell me that something very bad is happening. So we started to put together a service for each driver called the race performance, right? How are they doing in the race? We also found that like in sim racing, unlike a car, things like frame rate really had an impact. Like if you saw a driver's frame rate refresh drop to below 50, you knew that there was a hardware problem and that was causing an outcome problem for them in racing that was not going to be good. That is creepy. I'm not going to lie. It creeps me out. I hope you saw it online what was behind us. It was awesome. So then we know that the drivers are also dependent on their car to do well. And even though the car is virtual, it still has performance indicators that can tell us something good. And like in this case, we know like tire wear, probably a pretty important thing to keep an eye on for things like pit strategy. So when do I need to pit at the right time? So the racers are dependent upon the cars, and it's each individual car is tied to a direct racer, but yet all of us are dependent on the same track. So all of us run on the same track. So track temperatures, wind direction, that affects all of us. So that track service is affecting all of us. Make sense? So this is kind of a cool service view. It starts to give you, spark lines of things that are happening, but this is probably more of an investigative view. This is more of a visualization that somebody like a McLaren race team spotter would use. So his spotter, it surprised me. And honestly, when we started talking with these guys, because I'm like, I know that NASCAR teams and F1 teams have lots of people doing lots of things in their ear, telling them what's going on. But legit, these top level competitors have 5 or 6 people on the team doing different jobs for them. And they have multiple spotters. They have setup people that like are basically mechanics, but in a digital sense, right? That they're changing the tune of the car. And so this was a dashboard we built for the spotters to basically keep an eye in race, like up on a 4th monitor or something, to just say, are things going okay? Like, are we good? And so here you're seeing KPIs brought to life in color based on thresholds, right? So we say thresholds, if it's green, we're good. If it's yellow, it's probably hot. If it's blue, the tires haven't come up to an operating temperature, right? So we've started to do that. Then we surface like health scores, like the race car up there. If it's green, the car is probably good. There's not like any health service underneath it that's really broken. And then we have things over here just tell us like, lap time deltas, are we going the right direction? So again, quick, easy visualizations. This is called a glass table in ITSI. And you may have something that looks like this, like a network diagram or a data center diagram that you start to light up with real KPIs that tell you like where humans should go take action for failed disks or power problems or thermal problems in a data center. But then if you have a spotter that's, somebody that needs to dig into like, why is something happening? This is what's called a deep dive. So we can deep dive into any service and look at all the KPIs that make up that service in a deep dive view that now allows humans, who are still the world's best pattern recognition engines, to do what we do best, which is find the correlations between things that are happening and then go take action. So again, in a car service, you can look at it over various periods of time, and it starts to light up when we've broken thresholds. So again, the whole idea is giving humans the best chance to perform. Then we also started thinking about, well, we talked with Tobin Lee, the manager of the McLaren team. We're like, okay, so after the race, what do you want to look at in terms of data to make decisions that will impact your team? And he said, well, we need to know, like we may have 6 people on a team, but only 4 seats for a particular event, right? So they need to figure out who are the top 4 in that track, in that car, on that platform that week, right? And so what we built is this lap time comparison chart, which basically in a race, you can go back and select a race, then select the fastest lap of that race, an optimal lap, and start to compare each driver's speed logs of how are they doing. And speed traces in racing, like performance review, they tell you a lot. It's a simple graph, but speed traces tell you so much about performance. So if you see in a speed trace a sharp change between deceleration and acceleration, that's good, because drivers should be high performance drivers. They brake as late as possible. So they're late into the brakes as they go into a corner. They brake as hard as possible because they want to spend as little time as possible slowing down. And as soon as they've hit that apex, they're out of the brake and they're not coasting and staying at a speed at a very long time. They've gotten to the necessary speed to make the turn. And then as soon as they've made the apex, they're accelerating out of it. So anytime you saw speed traces where there was flat points, you know somebody's coasting. They're neither decelerating or accelerating. That's not good in racing. So it's a really formative graph, even though it's a very simple thing that we found pretty interesting. Now, if you're interested in going back and seeing some of these hackathons or getting hands-on with the data yourself, we actually have all 6 of the races. They're kind of cool broadcasts. They're actually look like you're watching a NASCAR race. Like, got goofy guys in the corner doing commentary, and they're a lot of fun. But then the hackathons are actually hands-on, show you how to do the things that we built, and get hands-on with us. Now, you'll also start to see we're doing a lot of cool work with the Logitech McLaren G Challenge. So is anybody familiar with Logitech G Challenge? So if you're into iRacing, it's the largest global sim racing competition ever done. Logitech and McLaren sponsor it. Splunk is a sponsor of this challenge. And basically they invite racers from around the world to compete in monthly races on iRacing and Assetto Corsa Competizione on GT3 cars, open wheel cars, and NASCAR. And if you qualify in the top 25 in each month, you get to advance to a new qualification, and the grand finals are in January. And there's millions of people playing and watching. And so it's pretty exciting. So you're going to start to see some of the analytics that we built here actually show up in the broadcast with Logitech McLaren G Challenge. So we're very excited to partner with them. You can scan the QR code if you want to go back and watch those videos. Also, the links to like join our Discord channel if you want to come racing with us are all in the video notes as well. Now, if you want to right now, this very minute, get your hands on the data, get your hands on Splunk, and actually see this stuff brought to life, we actually have an on-demand set of episodes in our game called Boss of Ops and Observability. So Splunk built a kind of a capture the flag-esque game where we take real data from like real life customer scenarios or data that we build that mimics a real scenario. And then we make challenges to where you can go see if you can solve the problem and find the outage or find the breach or find what happened using Splunk. And that's guided. It's really good learning. It's a good way that if you haven't used Splunk before, to like get comfortable with like how our stuff works. And so usually these programs are done just like big events. Like next week, we're hosting one that a bunch of people are, we'll probably have over 1,000 people playing around the globe. And at Conf, we had near 1,000 people playing it as well. But now we have them on demand. So, and they're all 3 of the ones that are on demand are racing related. And it's beautiful because it actually showcases, highlight getting started with Splunk in general, then using observability, and then actually Splunk IT Service Intelligence. And they just get progressively sort of more challenging, even though they're all entry-level episodes. So even if you've never used Splunk before, you're kind of new to racing, it's a guided, gamified experience to get hands-on with, and it's available on demand anytime you want at boo.splunk.com. And then also you can clearly join the December 8th event if you want to actually, not talk about racing, but you want to go look at things like, outages in your AWS environment, things like your web storefront no longer accepting orders, cool challenges that are real life are totally available to you there. So you can also have friends join you. So you can have up to 4 people on a team so you can compete together. So it's kind of a fun team building exercise if you're interested in trying it. Okay. So key takeaways. If you've learned nothing, here's what you need to know. Splunk clearly is truly data to everything. We're bringing data to esports sim racing. It's not exactly what Splunk was started to do. Let's be honest, right? We're really good at log aggregation. We matured into a security platform, IT operations, observability, and AI ops. But it showcases the simple truth that a quality data ingestion and indexing platform that gives you simple ways to ask questions and surface insights matters outside of those things as well. So your creativity is really, it's up to you to find those creative use cases. And I'll tell you that things like this may feel silly, like racing. It's not all that, it's not IT. Why are you even talking about this? But we found that it actually, because these things are so similar and the tools that we're using are the same tools you'd use to solve real life problems, that playing on fun stuff like outside the box actually makes you better inside the box, right? So having a tinkering lab, having something fun to do does build skills that are fun. And Boss of Ops and Observability is the fastest way to get hands-on with this data if you want to join us. And with that, I'll say thank you very much. If you have questions, I'll stick around. And thanks for joining online for those folks on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch. Thanks so much. Appreciate y'all.
Hello, and welcome to Boss of Ops and Observability, or, if you're pressed for time and into the whole brevity thing, boo. You might be wondering, why is Shelly here? Well, because I'm a big deal, and so is this. The Splunk t-shirt company needs your help. We have a problem. Some sort of technology situation. I'm old school, Tori's busy, and Frank, well, Frank doesn't really do anything. So we're relying on you.
Thanks, Shelley. Once you've shaken the Vegas off and you're back home, join Splunk for Boss of Ops and Observability, or as we lovingly refer to it as BOO, on Wednesday, December 8th at 10 a.m. U.S. Pacific Time. BOO is a gamified capture the flag-esque competition where participants leverage Splunk's observability and IT capabilities to answer a variety of questions related to real-world IT and DevOps incidents. So get your team together, get ready to claim your title as Splunk's Boss of Ops and Observability on December 8th at 10 a.m. Eastern. Register now at boo.com or register via the link below.
Good luck. And thank you.